seen, but no, I thoroughly enjoyed it, so it's something worth doing actually. Right, tell me when you start recording, Robert. I'll try and do a bit better on the commentary. Right, so this is the holiday that I did last year, 1999, in India and Nepal. Actually, I think it was this time, because I've an idea, I'd have to check to be certain, but I've an idea I went on the Saturday that's just passed, corresponding a year back. If so, then this, well, no, I think we would have been out of Delhi. So we flew to Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam and changed planes. Now you can fly direct from Heathrow to New Delhi, but it's cheaper. I mean, it's all done for me by the company, but it's cheaper apparently to fly to Amsterdam. And this is merely a shot to say, well, you know, we didn't fly straight to New Delhi. And it was raining, as you can see. It was raining. Now, goodness knows where that is. You know, you know what it's like on the planes. They put these little maps up. But, of course, they're also showing films at the same time. And I haven't the remotest idea where that is or what those lines are. Not accurately what those lines are. But it's what I call a link shot. Otherwise, you get the impression that you went straight from Amsterdam to New Delhi at the speed of light. So these are sort of intermittent break-up shots. Now this was, or shot rather, this was our hotel. It doesn't really do it justice. It was a beautiful old colonial hotel called the Oberoi, I think I'm spelling this right, Oberoi Maidens Hotel. And it was an old colonial type hotel. And it was very nice actually, but it's come out somewhat dark there because I was taking it into the sun. But beautiful grounds, and as I say, it doesn't really do it justice there. Now this is the Red Fort in India, more about that later. But we were on our way, we're in New Delhi, or Delhi, and we're on our way to see other sites, but we came back to that. Now this mosque, and I will just give you the name of this mosque is the largest mosque, I think, in India, but certainly in Delhi. And it's Old Delhi, and it's spelt Jama, and I think sometimes it's Jamaore, and I don't know how you pronounce the second word, Masjid. So Jamar or Jamor or whatever, Masjid, mosque. But it's the largest one in Delhi. I think it's the largest one in India. And although India is a Hindu population predominantly, nevertheless there is a large Muslim influence as well. And there you are. And this mosque, what it consists of basically is a big courtyard. You'll see it in a moment, with sort of passageways going around the perimeter. And they are, well, presumably they all are, but certainly the guy kneeling down is a Muslim at prayer, and you can see he's barefooted. And in fact, they're all barefooted, and come to think of it, we had to take our shoes off now, yes, I remember. And that's another view of the mosque. So the whole complex would be called a mosque, but there are certain worshipping areas, and this is one of the sites of Delhi. Now, we're now looking towards where we look from the outside. So all that worshipping was going on, as it were, to the left, sort of coming up the side of the room here, sort of thing. And we're now looking towards the entrance where we came in. But it's like a rectangle all the way round. It's come out dark because I'm taking it towards the sun. So the worshipping area was on the right. The entrance exit is sort of on the left out of picture, so this is the other side, as it were. And you can see the tarpaulin down. I always remember here, I say tarpaulin, whatever it is to walk on, but I always remember here the sort of personal things. This man came up and he was fussing round, acting as a sort of protector when he was after a tip. And he was sort of saying, you know, I'll sort of make certain no one bothers you, because you get beggars everywhere, that no one bothers you. And in fact, one beggar sort of came within distance and he sort of shushed him away, this guide, and obviously was asked for a tip. But I think they were in cohorts. I think it's a sort of act that they do, whereby any tip that this bloke did get will be passed on to the beggars. You know, it's easy to be conned. Right, the reason I took this basically was, I know it's not perhaps a very nice thing to do. We are coming out of that mosque, but can you notice there the beggar? You see, that was our guide, nice man actually, educated man, our guide, who's got he's almost centre of the picture, got his hand raised up. Well, just to his right, as it were, is this hideously deformed beggar. I mean, you can't go right up to these people and place the camera at them. And I know really perhaps one shouldn't do it morally, but you do, he was grotesquely deformed. I think in many cases they are deliberately, made, they cripple themselves or are crippled by others deliberately to gain sympathy. There you have, by the way, our party. We were 6. The man on the left there, who the woman is trying to get money from, he was a university lecturer from Stockport, Manchester University is where he lectured. I think he lectured in the history and philosophy of religion or something like that. That was his wife in the blue there, sort of walking purposefully towards the gate. She was just retired from teaching. So she had been a teacher, and so therefore she was presumably 60 old. I don't think she looked it. The two in black there, you'll see more, well, you'll see more of the others later, but they were mother and daughter. Mother on the left, daughter on the... No, mother on the right, daughter on the left, as we look. Mother on the right, daughter on the left. And the daughter, I suppose she was early 20s, mid-20s, I'm not really certain, but she had got a degree in biochemistry, and she worked, now where did she work now? Was it for some bank or something or other? And the mother on the right there was of Swiss origin, and she spoke in a continental sort of way, and she owns or manages a restaurant near the Barbican. So that's 4 of the party accounted for. The 5th, I mean there were 6 of us in all, but calling me number 6, I say girl, I mean she was in her 30s I suppose, but the woman in front of the mother with the bag over her shoulder with a white top, she was a primary school teacher from, was it Epsom, I forget now, or Cheam or somewhere in Surrey I think. Funny enough, she knew a bit about Gillingham, she had a friend in Gillingham, and she had stayed here. Now the thing was, I was flabbergasted when I found out there were only 6 of us in the party, and we didn't really see a coach. We went everywhere in either a minibus or minibuses and private cars. We didn't see a coach, and in some ways it was an advantage because we were able to see things where a coach couldn't have got. On the other hand, I did quite miss the company, and unfortunately, you know, the 4 of us who were in inverted commas teachers, in other words the 4 of us excluding the mother and daughter, I got on, I mean I did not get on well with any of them, for goodness sake. I didn't fall out or anything like that, but although on paper the wife and the lecturer husband and the primary school teacher, although on paper with myself we had a lot in common, in practice I didn't really have that much in common with them. I had more in common, I empathised better with the mother and daughter. Unfortunately, partway through the holiday, they didn't do the second part, as it were, or rather they did a different second part, so it was just the other 3 and myself, you see, and I rather wish they'd stayed. This guy also on the left there was a Methodist minister. Well, he had been, I don't know whether you ever actually stopped being a Methodist minister, but he wasn't an acting one now, so that was another thing in common. But in fact, I mean, he began to irritate me actually after a while. I guess I irritated him. So there you are, that's our party, you see.
And the woman there, you see, begging, you get begging everywhere. It's not just the odd one, it's endemic. Begging everywhere. Right, this in fact, let me just check the name, but this is the memorial to Mahatma Gandhi. And this is another one of the sites of Delhi. Yes, this is called Raj Ghat, R-A-J-G-H-A-T, 2 words, being the simple memorial to Mahatma Gandhi in Old Delhi. Now, when I saw this, because it was hot, my goodness, was it hot in Delhi, and you know, this was round about midday, early morning, the day had barely started, and I thought to myself, I can't face going down there. Principally because you had to take your shoes off, and in the heat, the effort of taking my blooming shoes off, I thought, no, I'll see it from a distance. But then I thought to myself, well, everyone else is going down, and there obviously is a focal point down there. So I took my shoes off, bit the bullet, and I'm glad I did actually. So this is the simple memorial to Mahatma Gandhi. Oh, this is in the surrounding, could be England, that couldn't it? This is the surrounding grounds. This is the surrounding grounds of the park. And this is closer still. But as I said, even to go down there, you have to take your shoes off. So this is closer still. And then when you get closer in, you can see the flame there, and this sort of, well, memorial of flowers. I would say those Indians are middle class. They're certainly not beggars. They're not poor. They looked, sounds awful saying they look respectable, but you know what I mean. And the bloke there, every time I look at a slide, I see something different. And the guy on the left, I hadn't noticed this before, is praying, isn't he? He's got his hands together there. Right, we're now walking out of the park, for want of a better word. So that memorial with the flowers was sort of through that archway, as it were, right of centre, through that archway, and you took your shoes off where the curve of the arch is, sort of thing. And then you went into where the little sort of square or complex where the people were paying their respects. Now this in fact is, I'm pleased with this one. I suppose I should, I mean I'm pleased with it because I think it's come out well, but I'm pleased with it because I got away without paying. I mean you don't have to pay, but they do expect a tip. And these pythons or whatever, yeah, they're not pythons, no, they're not pythons, are they? I forget that, the name of these snakes, you know, the cobras. These cobras aren't poisonous because their poison or fangs have been removed. But nevertheless, they're doing it as a form of begging, but I suppose at least you're getting something for your money. But I took that, which I think has come out very well, and didn't pay anything. I've got quite a clear conscience about this, no shame. I've got to change the record. Oh yes, this is, for the record, I think, approaching the tomb of, and the word is Humayun, so Humayun perhaps, and it's a suburb of Delhi, I think. I mean, I'm sort of dismissing these tombs just by naming them, but they do all have a significance. I mean, they're famous, but otherwise we wouldn't be going there. But I can't just remember offhand what the big deal was about this guy, but it is very significant. The tower is a very famous tower. I'll just check the name of it. And this is called, yeah, I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's spelled Q-U-T-B, Qud, perhaps it's pronounced, and the second word is Minar, M-I-N-A-R, tower. And this complex, it's an old city complex. It's in Delhi, but I think it may have been the site of the original Delhi, but it's surrounded by ruins. And here again, this tower has quite a history, which I'm not quite certain about, but I know it's one of the landmarks of Delhi. And there, now, something I found out afterwards, and you'd almost missed this, so we're still on the complex with the ruins. If you look at that, almost looks like a lamppost over there, just right of centre of picture. Now, apparently, if you go up to that with your back to it and put your arms behind your back and are able to link hands with yourself, you know, form the circle as it were, then that brings you good luck. But it seems to me that this must have been a thing of yesteryear, because there are railings there and it looks as though you couldn't do that now. But in any case, I didn't know about that until I read it. Either someone told me or I read it in a guidebook or something. We weren't told, at least I don't recall being told at the time. Now, interesting this actually, because it was rather funny actually, in a way, because you look at those young Indian men staring. Now, they are not least staring at the daughter, who was very attractive, and I mean her mother, who I suppose was 50-ish, was very attractive. And I think they might have been staring at us, white people, anyway. But certainly, you know, they didn't need much egging on because of the daughter. And one of the things that surprised me in India, including Delhi, the capital, is just how few tourists we encountered. I thought the place would be swarming with tourists, not least Americans. In fact, we hardly encountered any, just a few. So white flesh, as I say, not least on attractive women, was a novelty. You know, and it shows there. Very intricate carvings there. So we're still in this old ruined place in the vicinity of the tower. And again, and that is the tower, the base of the tower on the right. On the right. Yes, everyone looks well dressed, don't they, really, in sort of Indian terms, as it were. Not many women either, come to think of it, are there? Not many women.
Martin, what do you think these people are doing at this site? I mean, there's lots of Indian people, native people. What do you think they would be doing around this area? They seem to be just walking around.
Yes, I think so. I get the feeling it would almost be. I suppose the blunt answer is I don't know, but my instinct perhaps is that they are walking out, as it were, almost like strolling along the prom, almost like promenading. I wouldn't have thought they were there for any particular sort of architectural purpose, although I may be wrong. Perhaps the place to be seen, you know. But I'm trying to imagine what this was like when it was all a whole bit like, you know, the Acropolis sort of thing. And here we've got that tower again. Now this tower is very significant. I just can't say what it is offhand. There's me. Oh, this was taken by the lecturer guy, and we were looking for somewhere to eat. It was midday in Delhi. We were looking for somewhere to eat, and this was a nice eating place. I sound awful this word respectable, but it was, you know, the Indians that were there were middle class, obviously professional people. And I've got a gut, I mean no pun intended, but I've got a gut feeling that it was here that I had my first upset, because I've never been ill on holiday. Touch wood, I won't be again. But I was violently sick and so on several times during this holiday, but I can fairly say it did not spoil the holiday. They happened at convenient times. But I've an idea that it may have been as a result of something here, because I had a first course, I forget what it was now, and I'm one of these people who always like to have a dessert, even if it's just a bar of chocolate and apple. I feel if I don't, I haven't completed the meal. It's just a psychological thing, really. Well, they didn't have much going on the dessert, or at least not much that caught my eye, but there were hot cashew nuts, so I gobbled up hot cashew nuts, and I mean, who knows, but I'm wondering if they precipitated the sickness or whatever that I had that evening, if I remember rightly. Not quite certain what happened there, possibly went off accidentally. Right, welcome to India. This is actually, by Indian standards, this is quite smart, but And it is actually. I mean, I've seen far worse than that. But you know, there you are. You get an idea, don't you? I think we're in New Delhi or the outskirts of Delhi. But this is fairly typical. Fairly typical. Yeah, this straight road is very famous, and it's called Raj Path, Rajpath, and it is flanked by parklands, and at the far end there is, I'm reading this, stands in, can't read writing here, but this Raj Path is a very, very famous thoroughfare indeed, and often on the tourist shots on television and so on of Delhi, you will get this. So I've got my back to the Secretariat building, and at the end here you've got a, we might not see this until later because I think I panned back to the buildings. Oh, that's the side of Raj Path. And that, in fact, now then, I'll have to check this. So the shot of the Secretariat building was to the left. The road is to the right. So I'm sort of pivoting round on the spot. And this place, let me just check this. This place is forgotten offhand, and I can't just quite pin it down in the not quite pin it down in the notes. The Parliament House. I think this is the Parliament House of New Delhi, which has the posh name or formal name of Sansad Bhavan, Bhavan. Yes, this is presumably at the top there. So this part of Delhi, this isn't poverty stricken, this is government buildings, fine architecture, new, lovely roads, you know, it's light years away from that scene we saw just now. This is the dome, I think, is the large dome of Rashtrapati Bhawan, Rashtrapati being the presidential palace. Well, what have I done now? Well, probably. Can you switch the light on? I've probably trodden on the lead or something or other. What is it going to? Yeah, it's okay. It's just. That's it. I just pulled it out. Okay, thanks, Rob. Cheers. Yes, the presidential palace. You can't go round it. Or rather, I think you can by special appointment. But somewhat dark because it's taken towards the sun, you see, but beggars can't be. I just noticed the red light on the top of that. Looks like a policeman's thing in the middle there. I never noticed that before. Well, it's only the third time. Right, so here we are at the Red Fort. And was it hot here? My goodness, it was hot. Now, we happened to be in Delhi on Independence Day. And well, I read in the paper the next day, I didn't realise at the time, the security apparently was unbelievable because they were worried about, I think it wasn't long after Pakistan and India had been having a go at each other over Kashmir. And Delhi was crowded. And in fact, we did wonder whether the Red Fort would be open, which would have been a tremendous disappointment if it hadn't have been. Because it was Independence Day, we thought it might be closed, but it was open. But my goodness, was it hot. So that speaks itself, the Lahore gate into the Red Fort. And inside there, now if I remember, I've made notes on this, these buildings are all significant. This might be a museum. Yeah, this might be a particular museum. I'm not awfully certain about this. Quite frankly, one of the reasons I buy guidebooks, not that I necessarily religiously buy a guidebook here, there and everywhere, but I tend to buy the guidebooks not so much to guide me at the time, but for me to help label the slides later. you know, and any other sheets as well. Right, moving on. So we're inside the Red Fort. We're inside the Red Fort, and this, in fact, is I think this is what is called the Hall of Public Audience, which has got the formal name D1IAM, DIWAN-I-AM, otherwise known as the Hall of Public Audience. I think that's what it is. And this is coming close up to it, I think, and it might be the Emperor's Throne. It might be the Emperor's Throne in the Hall of Public Audience. In the bottom left-hand corner, and here again I didn't find this out until some time afterwards when I looked at the guidebook or whatever, but in the bottom left-hand corner is a mosque, the Moti Masjid, I don't know if I pronounced that right, otherwise known as the Pearl Mosque, and that might be in the bottom left-hand corner. It's sort of got a mosque-y look about it, and below centre right, I've said, may well be D1I Kaz, otherwise known as the Hall of Private Audience. So on the right there, as distinct from the Hall of Public Audience, may well be the Hall of Private Audience, which has got a more formal Indian name, and it's all inside the Red Fort. And this, in fact, is the where are we? I think this might be part of the Hall of Private Audience. I always remember here, I think it was just because we're still on the pathway, as it were. You know, you're not allowed to actually step up and go through those places. But I always remember a sort of a personal thing. It always amused me. Two of these Indian lads, I don't know what they are in their 20s, in shirts. Some of them were following us around, and it was obviously they were following us around, not for the two male members of myself and the lecturer guy. It was obviously because of mainly because of the mother and daughter. But I mean, they weren't offensive. They weren't making comments or anything. They weren't offensive, and there must have been about 4 or 5 of them, and they would be keeping a discreet distance, but they were obviously following us around. And one of them, I suppose, summoned up the courage, and he went up to the mother and daughter dressed in black, and he said, do you mind if I take your photo? And they said, no, it's all right, you take our photo. And also, and this same guy with the camera, also beckoned towards the young teacher, the primary school teacher, and beckoned for her to be in the picture. But the funny thing was, he pointed at the other woman, the wife, who just retired, and he said, no, you know.
It's cheesy.
Yeah. So it struck me as funny, that. Right, this is outside the Red Fort. I must admit, I've never ever felt so thirsty. I mean, I was practically sort of dying of thirst. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but I gulped down. Fortunately, I think it was before we came out, actually. I got an ice cold drink, and I gulped that down in one gulp, and I could cheerfully have downed another one. It was that hot and humid. It's the humidity rather than the direct heat. But you can tell it's rather a weaker sun, isn't it? It's about 5 o'clock or whatever in the afternoon. So it's losing, it hasn't got the full midday strength, but it was hot there. And to the left, or in the surroundings by the fort, there were sort of markets. And it was very crowded. The slides don't really do, so we're outside the Red Fort. Now see the garlands because of Independence Day, and the marketplace was very, or places on the right there, was very crowded. This doesn't really do it justice, but of course one of the things about crowds is it's difficult to point your camera because people are up to you all the time, sort of thing. And here again, it doesn't look all that crowded there, but take it from me, it really was. It was chock-a-block. But I suppose if there hadn't have been a bit of a lull, I perhaps couldn't have got the shot. You see a lot of people riding these sort of, I don't know whether they're rickshaws, but these sort of bicycle things around. So the Red Fort is on the right there, you can just see it. Right, this is, I think we were on the coach here. Not exactly certain whether we were still in Delhi or not. But here again you get an idea of the poverty, although I mean that's not as grinding as one does see. Yeah, it came out badly this. The trouble is, when you're on a coach and you see a shot and you want to take it, there isn't time to adjust the light meter, not on my camera anyway. But even so, even though it's overexposed, because I didn't have time to set it, you get an idea of just how poor it is. I'm not certain without looking whether we're still in Delhi or thereabouts, but in a sense it doesn't really matter. Well, there you are. Welcome to India. Roadside scene. But I've often thought about this, you know, and the abject poverty, and I think to myself, if those people were suddenly whisked away on a magic carpet and put in, you know, Europe, Gillingham, London, they probably would be completely unhappy. You know, if you put them in a nice apartment or whatever, they'd probably be lost. Not that that's an excuse for letting them carry on like this necessarily, but this is pretty typical. It really is. You see this all the time. All the time. So if we're not in Delhi, we're not far out of it. Right, countryside scene. Here again it could almost be England. And again, selling bananas. Sometimes you will see a woman, I didn't get this on photo, but sometimes you'll see a woman, an old, well I suppose you might say an old crone, with a brush, with a broom in the form of brushes, and she's sweeping, goodness knows what difference it makes, sweeping. Well, she would be one of the untouchables, you see, who other Indians aren't meant to talk to or associate with, untouchable, doing a very menial job. Yeah. We're now in, the guy got those up his nose, ugh, horrible. We're now in Jaipur, which is in Rajasthan, India, and this guy was the resident, when I say clown, I don't quite, resident jester, at the Holiday Inn in Jaipur, and he was a friendly old boy, and I mean, if there was no one there, he didn't do anything, but obviously he was paid to entertain. And when he saw me, well, me on this occasion, he immediately starts doing his act and smiling and all with it. So we're now in Jaipur. And this is Jaipur or thereabouts. Even there, I know it's easy to see what you want to see, but the women, if you look carefully, the women, I know it's a long distance shot, so they've got colourful saris and things. Well, this is quite typical of Rajasthan. By the way, looking at those buses, I didn't get a shot, but you do see them hanging on the tops of buses. You know, for the commuter buses, if you like, you often see them on the top there. Good, I mean, you know, it's frightening, really, hanging on the top, sort of thing. But I didn't get a slide of it. Now, this, always remember, this, I say always remember, perhaps I don't remember, but when I did, this was a Sunday evening, we went into Jaipur and was it crowded here. India is like this. I mean, the population is enormous and increasing all the time, and there are people everywhere. I mean, they crawl out of the woodwork, they're everywhere. And this is, there's like a sort of a circus here of roads, and here again you get the coloured shawls or whatever, and it was very crowded. Jaipur is known as the Red City, and I've got to be careful in case I say the wrong thing, but I've an idea it's called the Red City because it was painted red on account of the visit of the Prince of Wales, not the present Prince of Wales, many years ago, but I might stand to be corrected on that. And here again, this is in the general sort of area of where I took the last shot. People everywhere. Bustle isn't the word for it, really. It is. I was going to, it didn't work out this way, but the girl there on the right, I mean, let's be serious, that is a sacred cow. Now, sacred cows and cattle are everywhere. And you don't touch them. They wander, because it's in Hindu philosophy, or in the Hindu religion, the cow, I don't think it's just the cow, but you tend to say the cow is sacred. So these cows, they wander up and down the road, causing traffic jams and goodness knows what else. I even saw one in Agra on the railway platform. And they're left. They're not chewed away or anything, because they are sacred. Well, when I went to take this shot, and unfortunately it came out all right, I thought that the teacher woman there on the right, the one from Epsom, primary school teacher, I thought that she had got, unintentionally got in the way of the shot. So I was pleased to see that, in fact, the cow has come out fine. So I had my joke, the old joke ready, you know, because I thought she was going to be in shot. No, look, there's an old cow there in the picture, you know, it all sort of scripted, but it didn't really sort of come out that way. Now this, in fact, let me just check this. Actually, it's working out quite easy to check. When I'm in the front there, it's more difficult the way things are arranged to check the notes, actually. So this is working out quite well. Now then, this was quite interesting. So we went round, or on the sort of ramparts, as it were, of this building. So I'm looking down on where I was sort of photographing just now. And as I said, very, very crowded. You've got a cow there. Well, you can see two. There's one on the left there. There's one just below centre, to name but two. In fact, it may well be the one on the right there that I took earlier. I just don't know. But, as I say, people everywhere. And here again, so I'm panning round, as it were, looking down there. I often think that slides, well, photographs, but let's say slides in particular, are like pictures on a wall. You can, no matter how many times you look at them, you see something different each time, don't you? You could stare at that for hours, couldn't you, really, and see different things. And here, you see, I didn't quite get away with it, because this woman here, I mean, she's breastfeeding the baby, and she was begging, and all the time she knew I wanted to take a photo of her, and, you know, making the eye contact, I thought, well, I can't very well take a photo of her and not pay her anything, because I didn't intend to pay anything. And I thought I'd got it. I thought I'd clinched it, because she looked away. At least I thought she looked away. And I thought, right, but you heard the click of the camera and looked round. And she didn't get anything, actually, but she did follow me to the exit, you know, and pestered. I mean, it wasn't offensive, but pestering, you know. And it looks to me as though all those people, the woman there, I suspect, with the baby on the right there, was probably begging. So all that activity is going on in the surrounding roads, sort of thing. Now, I'm not quite certain what this was. It's some sort of place we went to. Here again, you got the impression that it wasn't that crowded here, that people were strolling out, as it were, you know, for a walk. Well, where should we walk to? Well, we'll walk round here. But there is a religious element to it as well. I think it's a place of Hindu worship. It's in Jaipur, but I can't be absolutely certain where it is. So, looks like a god of some sort, perhaps. But it was quite peaceful here, actually. There was a fort. Now, this, in fact, was quite incredible, because this is... Yeah, I'm pretty certain, without looking at my notes, I'm virtually certain this is what they call the Amber Fort, which is a little way, though not far, if my memory serves me correctly, outside of Jaipur. And the Amber Fort is one of the sites. It is one of the sites. And you go up there on an elephant, and I'll show you this in a moment. So, yes, so you climb up to the Amber Fort on an elephant. Now, I suppose you don't have to go up on an elephant, but apart from walking, there's no other way as far as I know. And it'd be a hell of a walk. I think you can walk down, and I believe we did walk down actually, but you go up on this elephant, and so if I just go back to the previous shot, there it is, this Amber Fort up high, and there we are climbing up to it. So I was on the elephant with the wife of the lecturer, the retired teacher, and that's her, by the looks of it on the right there. and you see these rhesus monkeys or whatever. I think they're poisonous, these monkeys, or can give a poison bite. So this is taken from the elephant. You sort of ride side saddle on, as it were, I think, with one of you on one side and the other, you know, you're back to back on the other side. And this is looking back down. So that earlier shot, when we looked up towards the fort, may well have been taken from that road. So this is taken from the elephant. And here again, one's looking back down. So I'd come up there just a minute or two before, you see, and it's constant. And I must admit, on the travel programmes, I actually saw this a few months ago, or a few months after I came back. On one of the travel programmes, they visited the Amber Fort, and you know, you think to yourself, well, I was there, you know, it's great. Now we're now actually at the Amber Fort. Now I'm afraid I should know the history of it and the significance of it, because obviously it's steeped in history, but offhand I can't tell you what it is. But I can tell you that up until about 60 years ago, I think it was, tigers roamed freely down there. There aren't any there now, but they roamed freely, and obviously from time to time they would snatch villages, as they still do in other parts of India. They will take away people, you know, or kill them. And this is taken in the environs of the Amber Fort. Now we're now in the Amber Fort. Now here again, you see, I'm sure there have been books written on this, and I'm not exactly certain what is what here. But it is very, very significant. And there we are, climbing our party. There's our guide there, bottom right. So all these different buildings and things, which I'm rather dismissing, are very, very significant. But even an ignorant sort of Philistine like me can appreciate the intricate beauty. I mean, it must have taken years for these people to do all that sort of, I say marble, to do all that sculpturing, or whatever you call it, the mosaics, you know. And this is still in the Amber Fort. Now, I don't know, some sort of courtyard perhaps. But it obviously had a particular purpose. You know, why are the sort of, not railings there, but why are the sort of railing type things there? I don't know, you know. And the surrounding hills. So there is an awful lot of history here. I just don't know what it is offhand. And again, looks very old there, doesn't it? Part of the Amber Fort. I mean, off the top of my head, and this is sheer guesswork, it possibly was the home of one of the Maharajas or kings or emperors, maybe more like years ago. Oh yes, so we're still on the Amber Fort, and these monkeys, it's tempting to sort of, you know, want to play with them, but I think they can be spiteful. And I don't know whether they are rhesus monkeys, but I believe they can infect you. And I believe they can bite. I think they can be spiteful. I don't think they're as cuddly as they look, you know. So you see how high up the fort is. So I think we're about 8 miles from Jaipur. It's not actually Jaipur as such, I don't think, but it's within reach. Right, palace on the river or lake or whatever. So I think we were heading back to Jaipur. Now we stopped here. Looks a bit third worldish, doesn't it? You know, I'm not saying it is slave labour. I mean, not for me to say, but it got that sort of look about it, doesn't it? With the guy, the foreman, as it were, on the left there, keeping an eye on things. And this is what I mean, you see, by these sort of posh emporium places. So this is at the place where the jewellery was being, I'll assume that's the case, made. And look at it, I mean, you'd hardly believe that you're in the same sort of neck of the woods as all the poverty. And obviously they want you to buy the stuff, and normally they give you, I've had this so many times at these various places, give you a cup of mint tea or a drink to soften you up, as it were. And some people do buy. I mean, I never do, because I don't want it. And here we've got the place where they display all the carpets and things for sale. And what they tend to do you'll have a sort of a manager or someone there with minions at his disposal, and people will express an interest, and he snaps his fingers, this guy, and the minions will run off and get these carpets and unfurl them. And I think to myself, you know, you've got to put all those back, mate, particularly if no one buys, sort of thing. It's a waste of time. But I suppose it isn't, because at the end of the day, they must make a profit. Right, now that looks like a tourist, doesn't it? This place is very significant, and I do know what this is. This is a very famous observatory in Jaipur. For the record, the posh name is I don't really know whether it's worth saying out the name, but it does have a posh name. I've got it written down. And it's a very famous observatory in Jaipur. Yeah, I don't know quite what happened there. Now this, in fact, the reason as I said, you get the lot. If I was editing these, this wouldn't be there. In Jaipur, the most famous landmark of Jaipur is that building. Now I'll tell you what it is in a moment, because I do know what this is without looking at my links. So I know the informal name, but it's the most famous building in Jaipur. And we passed by it, and I wasn't certain whether we were going to go back by it to take what you might call proper photos. So what I did is I propped a guidebook up, or a book of some sort up. I suppose it was in my bedroom. I can't remember now. Yeah, it must have been in my bedroom. And my camera doesn't get in that close. It's not macro photos. So I got in as close as I dare, and I thought, well, if we don't go by the next day or whenever and get this, then at least I've got something, hopefully in order, in sequence. Well, in the event we did go by, so that was a wasted shot, but it wouldn't have been if we hadn't have gone by. And although it's poor quality, it would have been better than nothing at all. And there it is. It's what's called the Palace of the Winds. The Palace of the Winds. And it's difficult to get back far enough to get it all in. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's difficult. And this Palace of the Winds is a facade. It is two-dimensional. There's no depth to it. You get the feeling that it's the front of a building. In fact, that's it. It's like a lamina. It doesn't go back at all. And what used to happen is the maidens of yesteryear, princesses or whoever, the sort of aristocratic young women, used to look out from the windows there. They used to look at the world of Jaipur, the outside world, which to them was Jaipur. They used to look through those windows. And actually, if you ever see a programme on Jaipur, or dare I say India, in the same way that the Taj Mahal is a typical shot, you know, and the Eiffel Tower is for Paris, and Statue of Liberty is for New York and America, so this is for Jaipur. It's a standard sort of guidebook shot, television shot, if not for India itself, you know. And I've got another shot of it as well. Pizza. Got another shot of it as well. But I just didn't know whether we were going to go back. And again, the third shot, digging up the road there. Right, now something quite significant happened here actually. It was quite a bit frightening in a way. We were on the minibus, and where were we? We'd left Jaipur behind, and we were en route to a nature park. And our guide said to us, he said, look, he said, there's a camera shot, an opportunity photograph coming up. And behind us, because we were in front of these two camel carts. So he said to the driver of the mini, because we had a driver as well of the minibus, he said, pull over. Well, we pulled over, and the four of us, I'm not certain whether I think we may have parted company with the mother and daughter. But anyway, the 4 or 6 of us, I think just the 4 of us actually, got out. And we went to the back of the minibus to take the photo. And as we took and I took the photo. Well, suddenly the young primary school teacher, she leant against the back of the minibus like this, obviously feeling unwell. And suddenly she poleaxed down to the ground. It was frightening. I mean, there was no sort of slithering down. 1 minute, 1 second, split second she was like that. The next split second she was on the ground. And she was violently sick. She got the stomach bug, you see, or whatever. She was violently sick. And I will say that for the wife of the, I mean, you know, in situations like that, men don't know what to do they? I mean, they don't know what to do with their own wives always, let alone a strange woman. So the wife of the university lecturer, she was very good and she kept an eye on her. But the suddenness of it, because you see, we didn't know whether she'd hit her head, you see. And I always remember, so whenever I see that shot, I remember the drama. I don't know, I suppose it was just about to happen because presumably she hadn't quite reacted. I got the shot in first, but to the left, as it were, you know, it was, and it was frightening actually. In fact, the only one of the four of us, because I think the other two had gone their separate ways. But anyway, the only one of the four of us who didn't have anything wrong with him was the university guy. He came through unscathed because his wife, she experienced food problems as well. We're about a third of the way through. This is the aggregate, I think. Yeah, we're approaching what's called the ghost city, and I want to get this right because it's quite critical. This is we're either at or about to empty the deserted ghost city or citadel of, I'm not quite certain how you pronounce it, it might be pronounced Fatty Per Sikri, but it's spelled Fatepphur Sikri, 2 separate words. And this is a very, very common tourist, although there was hardly anyone there when we were there, but it's one of the tourist places. I wouldn't say it quite rates with the Taj Mahal, but it's one of the places to go to. And here again you see the history of it is well documented, but I just don't know what it is. And this is a particular gate, I think. And this is part and parcel of it, this deserted ghost city. There was hardly anyone there when we were there actually. But this is not exactly a personal thing, but this is looking out from this sort of fortress place. And on the right there, you don't quite get the impression here, but on the right there is what I would take to be a very deep reservoir or whatever, and that water is green moss, undisturbed, and I should have thought, I mean I don't know, but one had the impression it was very deep. And the kids there, or I don't know if they all did it as one, but certainly one or at least one kid got up. And we were looking down from the wall of this deserted city, and he indicated with his hands, I will dive in there for you if you give me a tip. Or, I mean, that's in effect what he was saying. You know, if you throw something to me, so many rupees or whatever, I will dive in there. Well, I mean, he could have drowned. I mean, I don't know whether he'd done it before and was perhaps quite an accomplished little diver, or whether he just did it on a whim, but I mean, you wouldn't do anything like that. But I always remember that, it's all stuck in my mind.
Did he actually dive in?
No. No one took him up on it, you see. No one took it, no, well, I mean, if anything had happened to him, you know. But I often wondered whether it was a one-off impulse on that kid's part, or maybe more than one kid, or whether he'd done it before and knew what he was about, sort of thing. This is a standard shot, actually. You know, all the books have got this shot. Actually, we were very lucky here, because in the morning, we went in the morning and it was sweltering. All right, it was very hot and humid, but at least it was fine. Now in the afternoon, I think we were in the monsoon, it chucked it down with rain. Well, it wouldn't have been quite the same in the rain, would it, you know? They now, I think, have reopened it in the evening, because I think at one time, because it's got a romantic thing about it under the moonlight, but I think they stopped it for security reasons and have now reopened it. Or is it the other way round? No, I think they've reopened it. But the Taj Mahal is quite, it is quite something with its marble and so on. It's just that. And again. Nice garden surrounding it as well. And somewhere, it might be on where that bloke is standing up, sort of, you know, southeast of centre, the picture as it were, there's a seat there, or somewhere there is what people call the Lady Diana seat, because Lady Diana, when she was in one of her miserable moods or pensive moods, sat on it. Well, I sat on the seat, but I didn't have my photo taken on it, but some did. So we're getting closer to the actual Taj Mahal, and I don't know the name of the emperor, was it, or whoever it was, but he built it. His wife died in childbirth, I think, but she died, you know, going back hundreds of years or whatever, and he was so distraught and grief-stricken that as a memorial he built this to her memory. And he and his wife are buried, I think I'm right in saying, deep down underneath. Now this is with my back to the Taj Mahal, looking towards the entrance that we came through. And the security is very tight. They search bags and everything. It would be a prime target for a terrorist attack. That could be the Diana seat, actually. So closer still. But I did read, I think, where the authorities are worried, where the pollution in the atmosphere is gradually wearing away. It doesn't look it there, I must admit, or weathering away the marble. I think it's marble. Right, we're now up on the sort of right next to, as it were, looking back towards the entrance. You're not allowed, although you can go inside, actually there isn't that big, the actual inside is pretty small, but you're not allowed to take photos in there, although you can go in there. But having said that, this is at the back of the Taj, and having said that, go round the back and you've got this river. It's not the Ganges, but you've got this river, and there was a beautiful cooling breeze on the back there. It really was, you know, blessed relief. I forget that I've got the name of this river written down, but it isn't the Ganges. And that sort of almost looks like a mark on the film, but that sort of blob on the water, the big one, I think, if my memory serves me correctly, was when I looked at it properly, was a floating dead dog, I think. It's a very polluted river. So we're now at the back of the Taj. And there's me. I get people to take photos of me, otherwise, I mean, with husbands and wives, they're photographing each other all the time, but when you're on your own, unless you ask people, I mean, I'm not vain, but I do like one or two of every country I've been in. This is how I've been there, you know. And I suppose there is something significant about the Taj in the background. There you've got the kids going to school, you see, I mean, quite smart really in their little uniforms, but look what's around them, you know, it's unbelievable. I said to our guide, I said, are policemen respected in India? And he said, no, he said, not really, they're not. And you see them around, they wear khaki, they always look like soldiers, and they've got these big cane things, which I saw one on Agra station. I don't say he was lashing it against the wall, but he was hitting some beggar with it, something or other. He said, no, the police aren't really respected, but the military are. If you're a military person, you are respected, looked up to. This is it doesn't look it here particularly, but I think I perhaps entitled this Monsoon Rain, because this is taken through the hotel window, one of the hotel windows in Agra, and the morning, this was the afternoon, and as I say, in the morning we had a beautiful day at the Taj Mahal, but in the afternoon it chucked it down. I mean, it doesn't necessarily look as though it's raining there, but it was belting down. Now this was incredible. I've never seen anything quite like this, because this is, I think it's in or near Agra, but wherever it is, it's a Sikh temple. And it's a complex. It's not just a temple. It's like a little, not village exactly, but it's like a little living unit, a community where they've got a temple and so on. And you can always tell the Sikhs because of their turbans. And this young boy here, I don't know how old he was, 14, would he have been, I don't know. But he was chanting from a book of Sikh writings. And I always remember here, not just in this building, but in the whole complex, not only did we have to take our shoes off, but we had to take our socks off as well, which I don't think I've ever done before or since. Shoes, I've taken my shoes off in temples more times than at dinners, but I don't think I've ever taken socks off before. So this temple was part of the complex. Interesting about Sikhs actually, because apparently Sikhs in India are teased, made fun of in the same way that Irish people are in England and Poles are in Germany. Sikhs are the butt of jokes in India. But having said, this was one of the waiters took this, and I think it's come out well actually. And this was our hotel. Was it in Agra? I think it was in Agra, and there we all are. There we all are, all 6 of us. Yes, that was Agra. Now this was incredible. I have never. We got on the train, and it's what's called the Shatabadi Express. Shatabdi, I think it's spelled. And this is, I thought it was going to be luxurious. I'd sort of thought this from reading about it, but it isn't. It's very basic. But having said that, it was a blessed relief to get on it. I stood on this, it was a bit late, so we were moving away from Agra. I stood on this platform, and just standing there, the humidity was so great, my shirt was wringing wet all the way through. I'm not just talking about damp patches. Who hasn't? I've had damp patches before. But just standing there waiting for this blooming train, I was, my shirt could have been wrung out. It was so wet all the way through with perspiration. It was that humid. And it was here, I haven't got it in shot, that a cow, a sacred cow, had wandered up on the platform. Well, you know, it's left there sort of thing. And it was here, because you get beggars, you'll see this in a moment, and one of the Indians was sort of beating the beggar to get off the platform. I don't mean he was flogging him, you know, to the bone sort of thing, but he was clouting him with it. You imagine a policeman in England doing that with his truncheon. Blimey, they're really into it. So we're waiting for the train to come in. And there you've got, now this says it all, you see. The small kiddie with an even smaller babe or whatever in arms begging. Begging. It's begging everywhere, waiting for this train to come in on the platform begging. And I've even seen, I haven't got it in shot, a small baby. I mean literally a baby, younger than the boy, or girl bit boy I think, being held there, with its arms outstretched and a reflex reaction, the hand outstretched and a reflex reaction, before it could probably say any words, you see, and this is what it's all about. I mean, you know, it is patronising them in a way to take the photos, but, and it, you know, saying it's a fantastic experience is patronising, but it is, you know. And now the express is coming in. But I will say this, although this train wasn't luxurious, it did have air conditioning on it. And my goodness, after that humidity on the platform, was that air conditioning welcome? It really was. Right. And I'd been given the responsibility here. So this is where this was where we got to. I better just check the name of this, but we didn't really stop here. The train went on. Might even have gone on to Delhi, but I'm not certain. But the name of this place, 234, where we got off was, let's just have a look. 234. It's a place. It's spelt Jhansi, Jansi, I don't know. But we got off here, and they said to me, "Oh, Martin, you'll see the cases off, won't you? Our cases." And I said, "Yes." I mean, what else could I say? But I was a bit worried because the train goes quickly, it stops quickly, and it starts up again quickly. And I thought, "Oh no, where are these damn cases?" You know what I mean? But it was all right, yeah. So here we are. There's a sacred cow. Looks as though I could do with a good feed. A sacred cow again here. And this was near the railway station at this place, Jhansi, which is where we got off anyway. And we're going through the countryside. What amazed me, you know, this isn't to do with India as such, but the company I went with, Kuoni, who I'm going on safari with next year, I cannot fault them, you know, even if I was nitpicking to find fault with the organisation, I could not find one thing wrong. Because you bear in mind all these, and we're not into Nepal yet, all these stops, and here, there and everywhere, the guide or the whoever was always waiting for us. Even at this place, the guy was there, you know, and you'd think yourself, the administration, you know, you'd think yourself, "Oh, blimey, where's the bloke who's supposed to be meeting us?" But they were always there. And I said this in the travel agent where I said I could not, even if I was nitpicking, find a single fault. You know, everything was brilliantly organised, which is why perhaps I think it's Kuoni are perhaps top travellers, journalist choice of the year or something or other. And it's in Madhya, or however it's pronounced, Pradesh. Now this place is very famous for its erotic temples, or rather, sorry, for its temples and erotic carvings. It's quite a small place. The actual town is only about 30,000 population, but it's got these temples which are famous all over India and which are quite a few less than they were. And did it rain here? I have never ever been in such heavy rain. It was so heavy that my flight bag was drenched through to the inside. So I've learnt a lesson. I mean, I've been in rain before, but I learnt a lesson in future. Take a cellophane bag or something or other to protect my notes or whatever, because the rain, it was non-stop and it was chucking it down. So it was this dark, it was the way it was, it's not underexposed. And I had to hold, I'm glad I took my rolled umbrella, and I had to hold that up, or get someone to hold it up for me while I took the photos. I didn't want the camera to get wet. This is part of it, part of the temple complex. I don't know about those particularly, but a lot of them are very erotic, but beautifully carved. But it was raining so hard, it was unbelievable. It may have been the monsoon influence. And as I say, I was a little bit limited because I didn't want to get the camera wet. On the other hand, I wanted to get some shots. So it was a bit of a balancing act, you know, with the umbrella, particularly if I was holding it, and the camera. And again, some of those carvings look interesting. Someone had said, I mean, that is, it always makes me laugh, you know. I say to people, when you travel like I do, you have to be careful when you're speaking to people who don't travel, because it makes it sound, if you're not careful, it makes it sound as though you're saying, I've been there, you haven't, sort of thing. But I think it reminds me of this shot. I was speaking to people sometimes, and I was speaking to someone last week, an elderly lady, who I don't really know very well. And I said, you know, you can have smashing holidays in England and the UK, Scotland and Wales, fantastic holidays. I said, but you cannot beat foreign travel. You can't beat foreign travel. Because these people tend to, I mean, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but these people say, oh, you know, you go abroad, oh, but lots of people who go abroad, they haven't seen everything in England, which is just their way of making an excuse for not going abroad. Well, where would you see this in England? Or on the Australia slides, where would you see a kangaroo walking across the road in front of you? You know, you get a different, completely culture, a different food and all the rest of it, well, a different culture, a lot, which is what it's all about, really. This was, we were on our way to, I'll know from the next shot, I think we were on our way to a particular village. But, you know, I think a shot like that, I'm so pleased with it, really, you know. A roadside scene. Yes. No, we weren't on our way to the village. We were on our way to these falls, these waterfalls. Now, the name of these waterfalls is, I don't know how you pronounce it, Rana. It's spelled R-A-N-E-H. So we're now, I'll say Rana, we're now at these Rana waterfall or waterfalls. Well, I didn't realise there were any waterfalls in India. You know, I'm not that I've spent much time agonising over it, but these are quite incredible. I've never heard of them since or before, I don't think. And I think they were in a national park. Can we actually visit a village as distinct from seeing one as we pass by the roadside or whatever? Can we actually get out? And he said, well, it's not, I'm reluctant to do it with what you see when you pass by on the side of the road because of security. He said, but I can take you to a village, and this is what we're coming up to now, well, in the middle of nowhere, you see. Now, if we'd been on a coach, no way could we have done that, you know. So, well, I'm just finishing off by the waterfalls. This is in the sort of green area by the waterfalls. Now, we're now at this village, you see, and it was a nice afternoon, it was late afternoon. So the four of us, I think the other two, I'm not certain the other two were with us. I think they'd gone actually, and it was just the four of us. And so we're now on the fringe of this village, and now we're sort of a little bit more into it, it's on the fringe. And I suspect that this is probably the first time, I may be wrong on this, but I reckon we were probably the first white people who ever set foot in there now. Because it wasn't part of the itinerary, you see. It was only because someone said, could we see a village or typical life or whatever? And he took us here on a minibus or a private car, I can't remember what we were in actually, could do it. And of course we were the object of curiosity. I mean, the kids pushed to the front, as it were, but the adults were curious too, but they were more, not exactly dignified, but, you know, more in the background. And it was like going back to the Stone Age, you know, I think I maybe mentioned this to you before, when you see on television, where you've got villages in the rainforest, you know, with kids running around with nothing on and all the rest of it. Well, it was like that here. You know, and I thought to myself, this is almost primitive, it's almost Stone Age. And this is patronising, isn't it? But I said, do you mind if we come through your homes? Well, you imagine, you know, anyone coming to our houses and wanting to traipse through and take photos, strangers. And it is patronising in a way, but they didn't mind, you know, at least they didn't object. So I felt a little bit guilty, but not too much, not enough to stop me. And this little guy there, with me all together, with his brothers and or whoever, but you know, I thought to myself, and because if you transplanted those people, as I say, to modern civilization, very commerce, they'd be completely lost, wouldn't they? And this is the way they live. I mean, you couldn't get much more primitive, could you? This is the way they lived. But they made us very welcome. And that was our guide for the day. And he interpreted, I think. But they were delightful people, they really were. And that, we sat down, and that was, I think that's the bed they sleep on, or a family bed or something or other. And here again, I mean, it's like something out of the Stone Age, isn't it, really? Now, you don't get that in England, Scotland or Wales, do you? You know, I mean... Now, we'd left the village behind us, so we were heading back to wherever. But I wasn't trying to be clever. I didn't read the don't take photos shot until it was... until I'd taken it and I noticed the sign. But this is the airport at... If I remember rightly, it's the airport at Kajajara, however it's pronounced, and we're on our way to Varanasi. It's a small airport, that's the security thing there, but I noticed afterwards no photographs. Now, I bought some slides from a hawker or peddler or whatever, but all the slides were labelled Varanasi. I'm not so certain they all are Varanasi actually, but they all had the common label. And I put them in wherever, and I'm not actually certain whether that's Varanasi or not. But the thing about Varanasi is, in some ways, perhaps in all ways, it's the most important place in India. And what it is, let's check this, because I think when I was telling you at Christmas or wherever what I'd done, I didn't mention Varanasi and the Ganges and the pilgrims coming to bathe. I think I told you about the other things in outline or whatever. I think I omitted to mention about the pilgrims bathing and Varanasi or whatever. Thought what that was. I want this to be 282. Yes, this place Varanasi used to be called Benares. It is the most holy city in India. And I read in a book, I don't know that I go along with this, but nevertheless I read in a book where someone had said, it may well have been a tourist book, that if you only go to one city, you can only go to one place rather in India, go to Varanasi. It used to be called Benares. It is the most sacred place, and this is definitely the case, it's the most sacred place in India, and it is to Hindus what Mecca is to Muslims. And they, to go to this place is a real honour. It really is. It's like a Muslim going to Mecca. And if you die at Varanasi, that is the ultimate. You cannot have a better fate than to die at this most holy of Hindu cities, Varanasi. Well, this is just part of the Varanasi scene, as it were. Now, all temples apparently are guarded by I don't know if it's a god, but that animal, I think it's a pig, I'm not certain, but I believe I'm right in saying that all temples are guarded by it, or guarded by one. I wish now I'd said to this lecturer, I never said it actually. I forgot to, or it didn't occur to me. But as a minister of the Christian religion, I mean, whether he still is, he was, I often felt like saying to him, I would have said to, I wish I'd said it, you know, I'd almost say it word for word, it must make you cringe listening to all this nonsense about gods and what have you, because there are gods for everything, you know, and guarding here, there and everywhere. Well, that's completely against the Christian thing. What does it say? Thou shalt have no other God but me. You know, what he would have replied to of that, actually. But it just didn't really occur to me. Now, this place was incredible. The memory of this still stays with me, the noise. What happens, this is a temple, a Hindu temple in Varanasi, and what they do is when the people arrive, they bang the gong to let the gods know that they're here. So all the time you've got this gonging, this banging of the gong. And it was very crowded here, and you get the feeling that it's a family occasion. You get that feeling that it's a family occasion. Mum, Dad and the kids go here to worship and perhaps to be seen. It's obviously a focal point and very noisy and very exciting in its way, I must admit. And that noise all the time of that gong ringing. This is Sarnath, definitely. I remember here, the reason I took this shot, it's funny enough, all the time along the roadside you see, I think men really, whereas in England if men or boys, young lads are lounging about, you'll see them perhaps holding up a lamppost, you know, or leaning against a wall. In India they squat, and you think, how on earth can they be comfortable doing that? But they look as comfortable as anything. And I saw this a lot but never got a shot. Well, the nearest I got to it, and I can't make it out very clearly there, is one of the builders at Sarnath building this. He was squatting, although for the life of me I can't. It might be the guy in sort of right of centre, the guy on the left of the two together there on the wall. But I know when I came to do a shot later, perhaps to get a better one, he sort of shushed the camera away. He didn't want to be photographed. It may not have been the same person as before. It may have been something different. Now, this is Sarnath, and what is significant there is not what's underneath, it's the tree, because I think this is a descendant of the original tree where the Lord Buddha preached his very first sermon. And in fact I got a leaf of it upstairs, I think. And we're in the grounds here at Sarnath of this place, and this is I don't know whether, I think these might have been pilgrims from Sri Lanka. Right, Varanasi or Sarnath again. The reason I took this, these two young lads here are holding hands. That's the reason I took it. I mean, I've seen this not only in India but in the Middle East, and you get boys and young men holding hands, and it's not a sexual thing. Now in England, I mean, you imagine that, walking along, you know, to Gillingham football ground, but it's affection, it is genuine affection. There's not a sexual thing about it at all. That's the reason I took it. So we're still with these ruins. Varanasi, Sarnath, wherever, roadside scene. Because you're always told never buy, not only in India, but don't, as a tourist you're told, don't buy fruit, you know, and all the rest of it. Don't. You imagine all. Oh God, where did it come from?
Yeah,
the stomach upsets.
Doesn't look very healthy, does it?
Oh no, no. Varanasi, perhaps. Now then, this is what it's all about, Varanasi. So these pilgrims bathe in the Ganges. Now the best time to see this is to get up early in the morning. Now by the side of the Ganges they've got what are called ghats, G-H-A-T-S, ghats, and they're steps that lead down to the river. And there are they're sort of compartmentalised, and there are various ghats, I forget how many there are actually, quite a lot, you know, with divisions between them, but they've all got these steps leading down to the Ganges. And the best time to see this is in the morning when it's not so crowded. So you get a boat, little like big canoe type things, or rowing boats. There's someone doing the rowing for you. And we went in these and were taken along the shores, and it was absolutely fantastic. So these people think they're washing their sins away, and it's one of the sights of the world, dare I say it. Now these ghats, this is the early morning light, these ghats get very crowded. Later on, very crowded. Here it's just beginning sort of thing. Prayag Ghat. Some ghats have a particular purpose. There's one of them is a sort of well known for its wrestling. You get Indian wrestlers wrestling on it. Another one is a cremation ghat. And you know, as I said earlier, to die at Varanasi is brilliant. A Hindu couldn't ask for anything better. And to have his ashes scattered in the sacred Ganges, wow, my goodness me, you know. That's a bought slide, but that gives you another idea of what it's all about, you see. That's my slide. So it's getting a bit packed. Another bought slide. So they actually do go in the water, you know. Another bought slide. My slide. Beginning to get a bit lighter, but still dim light. So these are all taken from a boat, you see. I'm not certain whether this is the other. No, I think it's on the Ghat side of the river. It might be the other side of the river, but I think it's on the Ghat side of the river. So you do get cremations going on. That's my slide. Now then, it's incredible. We're on our way now to Nepal, and it struck me, you know, talk about blooming the distance travelled in a day. In the morning, we were sort of by the Ganges River in India. In the late afternoon or whenever, we were in Nepal, having flown there. So we were now flying, I think, if I remember rightly, from Varanasi, this is on the plane, from Varanasi to Kathmandu, to the airport at Kathmandu. So we're now in Nepal, because Pam was interested in these. She's seen all of these slides.
Just the Nepal slides, or
all the India and Nepal ones. She came in, was it? I can't remember. It was the end of last year or the beginning of this year. We're now. I get muddled on these places, so I will try and get the names right. 354. Because she's more into it than I am, but you know, she knows more what everything is than I do. Stupa, and it's not Kathmandu. It's spelt in different ways. This Bodnath. Bodnath is one way of saying it, but there are different books tend to add different letters to Bodnath or whatever. But the stupa, those eyes are all seeing. They, you know, and I don't think there's an inside. I think it's solid, if I remember rightly. I know it was showery here. Right, this is. I'll check because I got the names of all the places in Nepal muddled in my mind, sort of thing. This is 360. So I want to be not too inaccurate. 360. Yes, I think this is this place, Bodnath, or however it's pronounced. The poverty in Nepal isn't as bad as in, or rather the begging isn't as bad as in India. In fact, I think begging is banned in Nepal. I think that's right. And any beggars you do get are Indian immigrants, I think. This, I think, might also be Bodhnath, Tibetan Buddhist monks, perhaps. A Nepalese policeman there. Oh, this is what's coming up now is quite incredible. This is not this particular shot, but colourful spices or whatever. But this is a place. Let me just check the number of this because I want to get this right. This is 362. This is yeah, it's a place called, or almost there, if we're not actually there, called Pashu Patinath, Pashu Patinath. I don't know whether it's pronounced Pashu Patinath, but hopefully that's what I'll say. Now, I didn't know what was around the corner from this place, literally. I just thought, oh, you know, we're going to have a look and all the rest of it. It's near Kathmandu, but it's not Kathmandu. So here we are, we're coming into this this place, you see, with temples or temple or whatever, and the people, and, you know, I thought to myself, fine, you know, we're just sort of, you know, follow my leader sort of thing. And then we're confronted with this. Now, what you see, not particularly in this shot maybe, but suddenly this was there. And this is a river or a tributary. I have got the name written down. Let me just move on. It's not that shot particularly. Yeah. What you see there are bodies. And they are going to be cremated, or a body going to be cremated. Now, you never actually see the bodies themselves. They're always covered. But that is going to be cremated, and presumably the ashes scattered. And we suddenly came upon this. You come over a bridge, I think it was just the one bridge, and suddenly you're on this bridge with this swirling river, or stream or tributary, whatever you call it, and all this cremation business going on. I mean, it was mind-boggling. And what happened, this is one of the temples surrounding, or whatever. This is near that. I'll say river, whatever it was. I'll say river. You also got here holy men, but our guide said, and the holy men are in yellow, but to be photographed they want money, you know. And the guide was asked, are they really holy men? And she said, well, a bit of Hollywood, you know, sort of thing. But what also staggered me about this river was not only the cremation aspect, maybe more than the cremation aspect, but all these youngsters were jumping in. Now there you've got the actual pyre. There, so that is an actual cremation taking place. Unbelievable, you know. Unbelievable, and what an atmosphere. And you had kids, some of them young kids. I mean, the guy there, the boy holding his hand at the bottom of the steps, he had nothing on whatsoever, he was completely naked. But most of the others, or all the others, were clothed, and they jumped in to this. Well, I suppose it wasn't dangerous because they wouldn't be jumping in, but incredible, you know. I mean, I thought, this is, you know, no, you don't see this in England, do you, or the United Kingdom? And there's yours truly, being taken at the place beginning with B. Now, this is one that I'm responsible for, really, because adjacent to this place we had a lunch stop, and we climbed up the steps to this lunch place in the middle of nowhere. We were in the middle of nowhere. And as we climbed up, I noticed on the right, which is here, there was a school. I noticed that. And I said to the guide, after we'd had lunch, or while we were having lunch, I said to our Nepalese guide, a woman, I said, since all four of us are, in inverted commas, teachers, I said, I thought you could only say no. I wonder, would it be all right for us to visit that school? I mean, no way was it part of the itinerary. It was my instigation. And obviously a coach load of people couldn't have done it, but the four of us in a minibus or car, it was practicable from that point of view, certainly. And I thought she'd say, oh, well, I'd better go and check with the head teacher first. But she said yes straight away. Now, it was during their break, I think it was their lunch break, and we climbed up the parallel slope. And all this school consisted of, it was like, just curious what that noise is. So this school, rather, was L-shaped. Oh, blimey. Let's get used to this. And the L, that was one arm of the L, and then the other arm, which comes at right angles to it, sort of across here, was double-storied. And that was the school. And I said to the kids, or indicated to them, you know, wave, or whatever, or perhaps they waved spontaneously, and at the end of it I gave them the thumbs up. But I must stress, these are poor kids in a poor school, because the best schools are in the cities, and they are private schools. The poor schools, and this is an example of a poor school, are provided by the state. And not only, or the government, and not only, you see, are they poor in buildings and what have you, but they're poor in teachers, because the more qualified teachers get more pay by working in the private sector in the cities. So these kids are really the bottom of the pile, but they were delightful children, I'm bound to say that. And I venture to say, I really do venture to say, that we were the first white people ever to set foot in that place. I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case. I mean, I don't know. But, so we were shown, well, I use the term classrooms advisedly. I mean, there you are. And one of the classes, I can't remember now which one it... I say classes, I mean maybe they weren't in... maybe they weren't in classes. But one of the groups of kids, I'll say class, suddenly started singing spontaneously to us. And the teacher, that's a teacher back there, hadn't prompted them. They just started singing. And we said to the guide, what are they singing about? And she said they are singing about how happy they are, or they're singing about the fact that they're learning arithmetic and English. And one little boy, I suppose he was showing off really, but he didn't seem like it, he started to count in English 1 to 7. And one of the things was, it really struck me as almost an anachronism. In their, we had a look at their books, well, in a manner of speaking, we had a look at their books, and there, would you believe, was an English textbook, written in English. I don't mean a Nepalese textbook to teach kids English, I mean an English textbook written for English kids. And it was the sort of book that a primary school kid at Bansarada would have used perhaps in the 70s or 80s. It was dated out. It looked so funny seeing that. But, I mean, they're nice looking children. They're really, a little girl there was like a doll in the second row back. But I think the guide said, would you send photos back to us? Well, I thought to myself, I didn't make a definite commitment. I think the girl, the private school teacher, say girl, woman, did. But I didn't make a definite commitment because I thought to myself, well, £1 a time, you know, to have a print done from a slide. But I did, and I think I took 5 in all and did 4. And I sent them back. Now, presumably they got them. I mean, I don't know. I didn't get an acknowledgement. I don't know. I was expecting one. But I like to think that my prints were shown to the kids and pinned up on a notice board. And I sort of think that if that is the case, and I like to think it is the case, there's a little bit of me in this remote, out-of-the-way village in the middle of nowhere in Nepal. There's a little bit of me. I'm pinned up on the wall in a sense. Do you see what I'm saying? And it's a lovely feeling. I mean, it's, you know, it is. It's a nice feeling. But one of the sheepish, when we were in the room and things were being pointed out, perhaps, he looked embarrassed. And I know why I think he was looking embarrassed, because apparently, I think he's thick, because, not to be trying to point upon it, because apparently he was having to repeat the year, because he didn't make the academic grade in 1 year. In fact, he may have done a double repeat. So obviously he thought that that had been pointed out to us, and I think it had, and he was conscious, he felt embarrassed by it. But you can see how much bigger he is than... But I felt proud of this. I thought, you know, this is my instigation, you know, this is almost my little tour, as it were, and I was very pleased with that, yeah. Right, back in the Nepalese countryside again, the flash didn't go off. Likewise, it didn't go off, but there it did. Now what happened was, this young waiter, I think he was 19, I'm not certain actually, but he wasn't very old. He came over to me, I was feeling a bit queasy actually in my stomach, and he happened to serve me. And I can't remember who made the introduction, whether he said to me, I said to him, do you speak English? Or whether he said to me, where are you from? I can't remember exactly how the intro started, but the bottom line was that he knew I was from England. And he said to me, he said, I want to be a journalist, he said. He said, I really would like to be a journalist. A charming young man, he really was a charming young man. And he said, but he said, I cannot find out the address. I don't know whether he said the London School of Journalism or the London College of Journalism. But I said, look, I said, I will try and find out the address for you, and I will write back to you. I said, I will do my best, and I said, I will. And I said, if you don't hear, I said, I won't let you down. And I said, if you don't hear back from me, it won't be because I haven't written, it will be because it's got lost in the post or whatever. And he was very grateful, and he said, and he said, you know, in effect, he said, I'm just a poor boy from the village. He said, you know, I've come in, my brothers and parents still live in the village. And in effect, what he was saying was, I'm trying to better myself. I'm trying to better myself. And he said that for the first, he worked in the coffee shop. So this was the Hotel de la, and up in my letter, don't give up. I said, whatever you do, don't lose heart. I said, because, you know, the fact you've made an overture to me and got to know me and asked me about England, I said, if you hadn't have done that, if you hadn't said anything, then the opportunity would have gone by. So I said, you know, you've got a little bit of confidence, you've spoken to me, and I hopefully you'll be able to find this address for you and so on. And I said, don't give up. And in the subsequent letter I said to him, the funny thing was, he wrote to me first, back about last November, and he sent me stuff about visas from that he got from the British High Commission or whatever, and it seemed to contradict what he said in his letter. And a message came back on the screen saying, the address you have entered is incorrect. Please try again. Well, I wouldn't have known what to alter because it was all I had. I don't know whether I got a dot where I shouldn't have had one or whatever, so I let it go. And I haven't got the email address in any of my literature, you know. It was only what, at least I don't think I have, it was only thinking to myself, is my luggage going to turn up? Because it went straight through, you see, I didn't check it in each time. And it did. It did. And that's the last one. So I haven't bored you too much, gentlemen. I haven't bored you too much. I'd be interested to see how it comes out.
I was sort of running out of film towards the end.
Yeah. Well, that in a way was like me on the on that airport job. I wasn't running out of film, but I didn't want to get to the situation where I start a new reel and have to wait.